In the 2000s, Sony entered the handheld gaming market with their PlayStation Portable, a very impressive and a cult favorite console for the time period. While not doing as well as Nintendo's handhelds and will later kind of die off with the Vita thanks to the mobile game market exploding, the PSP holds a special heart and a lot of heart to gamers, especially for Sony ones, because it was a very special device. It's not one that I grew up with, but I definitely can see the appeal of it. I have one now, but I don't have a lot of games for it. For what I have played, it's a very interesting console, and it definitely would have been really cool to have at the time, but I always had a DS and Nintendo product, so sorry, Sony fans. But of course, Sega's like, hey, let's put Sonic on this console, because they put Sonic literally in everything nowadays. Well, even back then. And Backbone Entertainment will give us Sonic Rivals, released in 2006 on Sonic's 50th anniversary, and yeah. The game will be a 2D platformer racing game where you race against other Sonic characters like Knuckles, Shadow, Silver, as well as Metal Sonic, in order to fight Eggman and so on and so forth. That is to say that this game really isn't anything special. If you played it as a kid, you probably have some fond memories of it. But it's nothing very special, especially compared to what Sonic has on the DS. The Rush games outshine this game in pretty much every aspect, except for one, which we'll get into. Not to say this game is bad, but it definitely doesn't have a lot going for it. The story is incredibly weak. Eggman has a camera that can turn things into cards, somehow, don't ask. And he took a picture of Amy and Tails that Sonic wants to get back. But he's taking pictures of other things that other characters want to get back, like Knuckles, Shadow, and Silver, and they actually have their own campaigns that interlock with Sonic's campaign, which sounds cool, but there's very little story in between these cutscenes. Eggman says, here's my cards, haha, try to catch me. Someone else says, I want to get that. Sonic or whoever says, no, I want it, and that's about it. If you're playing as Knuckles, you want to get the card of the Master Emerald and restore Angel Island, which is part of a card, and then it transforms to Carnival Land. It seems like it was kind of shoehorned in to try to connect story elements to the levels, but it doesn't really work that well. While Shadow's after Eggman because he took a picture of Rouge and he's trying to investigate stuff, and of course, that happens to be Rouge being in a card, and that's pretty much it. Well, you can't believe the story's out of order. Silver's technically the last one, because it reveals that the Eggman the whole time was Eggman Nega. Very confusingly, Eggman Nega is now a character from the future in this game, rather than an alternate dimension version of Eggman. And Silver realizes that this isn't Eggman, but Eggman Nega, because Eggman's mannerisms were different under Nega, even though they're exactly the same character. I don't get that aspect. But yeah, Silver's just trying to find this guy and bring back the future. This story isn't that great, and the sad thing is it's definitely the canonical first appearance of Silver to the other Sonic characters. Technically, Sonic 6 came before, but according to everything storyline-wise, this is the first one, and it's very weak. In fact, the cutscenes are just basically short dialogue boxes, don't even last less than a minute after each level encounter, so there's not a whole lot of story going on here. It's mostly an excuse for level showcases and characters to race each other. That is just okay. While you do play as 4 different characters throughout each of their campaigns, there really isn't much difference. They have one special item that changes throughout each one. Sonic gets a short speed up, Shadow uses Chaos Control, Knuckles hits the ground, and Silver does whatever he does. But for the most part, you're just fighting bosses and running through levels. Which comes to the biggest problem I have with this game. While the gameplay is fine in general, because of the way it's designed, it's nowhere near as fun as any other 2D Sonic game. Because of the fact it's a racing game, most of the level designs are just pretty flat, and there's mostly just hitting a button on a certain platform. And even then, you can just get fucked up at the very end by a character just outracing you in this certain stretch where you just can't do anything. So even in your lead most of the time, if you fuck up near the end, you have to redo the whole entire thing, which really isn't that fun. You'd rather just do some platforming or anything like that, but you're just mostly just sprung along throughout each of the levels. You have some platforms to shake things up a bit, but for most part, it's both very easy, but also kind of difficult. It's not a good blend of either way, because the level, going through the level is pretty basic, there's not much to do there, but at the same time, you can get easily messed up at the end and just lose the thing, having to do it over again, which isn't really fun. But if you do it well and just memorize the level layouts, you'll do fine, but these level layouts aren't fun enough to try to remember to do them anyway. Each of the characters go through the levels differently, but each of the levels are basically exactly the same. So basically it's like the Sonic Heroes way of doing it, but even worse, since there's less uniqueness to each of the level designs, and as well as the character dynamics. So yeah, this is way worse than that, even though it is a shorter game. So I'll just go through all the levels for Sonic Receptus if they don't change. The first level he goes through is Forest Falls, which is a basic Green Hill Zone-like area. There's barely any obstacles here other than little logs, and each of the logs you hit, you press either the X or the circle button, one will shoot you forward, one will shoot you up in the air, and that's about it. That's most of the gameplay. Well, I say the levels aren't that great. I actually think the boss fights are actually pretty good. Compared to the DS games, this is definitely the highlight that is better. you're going against a rival in order to hit Eggman as much times as possible. It's not very difficult since there's an infinite amount of rings, which I wish there kind of wasn't, since these boss fights aren't really difficult. They're pretty fun and well designed. Really trying to get to hit him first before the other guy. It works extremely well, better than racing the other character in my opinion. The first boss fight you see here is this turtle boss, and pretty basic. You just kind of run towards his head and hit it. It can also hit you with its tail, and that's about it. The next level is called Sim Highway, which is actually a very unique styled level, even though it doesn't have a lot going on gameplay-wise. But this is the only areas, I think, where it's based off ancient Greek architecture, which is pretty cool, actually, to see. I wish there's more interesting things to do. As I said, there's really no enemies any of the levels. There's like maybe 2 appear once in a while. And most of the gameplay is just going through loops and bouncing up the same springs over again and using the same stock items again. The items aren't even worth mentioning, so I haven't mentioned them, other than the special item. They shock the opponent or they freeze them, and that's about it. The boss fight isn't worthy either. It's just a hawk that flies to the top of the screen where you gotta jump on top of the platforms in order to reach to them. This one's a lot more annoying than challenging, seeing as the way or to get to him, you have to wait for him to come down and just land on the right platform. So that's kind of annoying. But other than that, it's not too very difficult. It's just a little bit annoying, but that's alright. The next level is Sky Park, which is definitely one of the more annoying zones in the game. It was a pretty cool aesthetic with the carnival ones. There's a lot more gimmicks in the way that just stop you in your place, that you're like, oh wait, how was I going to see that on this small ass PSP screen? There's random red teddy bears that you're supposed to dodge, and I get hit by them every time because, like I said, you have to memorize the level in order to know it's there. As well as this really weird thing where you have to spin dash on, which is not very intuitive to figure that out when you first do it. Other than that, the level's fine. I do like the aesthetic a lot. It's just the fact the design just feels not too good. PSP racing game, the 2D way doesn't really work that well because, like I said, the screen isn't big enough for you to figure out where the obstacles are coming next, so it just requires you to memorize the levels, and the levels aren't that interesting enough to replay them multiple times and memorize them. Especially since you have to play them multiple times with different characters throughout the storylines. This game is way more repetitive than it needs to be. The level does shake up a bit in Act 2 where everything's on fire, which is kind of crazy, and you're racing against Metal Sonic instead of your rival character. That's kind of interesting. So yeah, sometimes Metal Sonic does take the place of the rival character, but they're pretty much interchangeable between each one of them. There's like nothing difference there, so that's why I'm not mentioning any of them, because this game doesn't really do anything unique with each of the different things, so why should I mention them? Because the game treats the rival race against Metal Sonic to be a boss fight, even though it isn't. There's no boss fight in the carnival area, so we go on to the next level. That being the obligatory ice level, Crystal Mountain, which is it Mountain? I don't think so. It is Crystal Mountain, I'm sorry. This level actually is not as hard as the other one because there's less of the annoying, unique obstacles they put in that one. There's no red teddy bears that'll just randomly grab you or anything like that. So yeah, it's just a basic ice level. Nothing new, interesting to say here. Eggman's boss is super easy. It's this bear wolf thing, Arctic. He'll come out and hit his claws, and you just jump on his head, and that's about it. His boss fights are pretty easy, but the thing that makes him fun is to try to get to him before the other guy does. So actually, I do like that aspect. I had a lot of problems with Sonic Rush's boss fight, so I'll gladly take these boss fights over that game. You know, Sonic Rush's levels are way better than Sonic Rivals levels, but you know what I mean. After that, we go to the level Death Yard, which is kind of the deserted factory level, which we see a lot in Sonic. But this one is desolate, which is actually, I think, kind of unique, because most of them are usually active. It's fine. It doesn't really have anything going for it that makes it very unique, really. The other levels had better aesthetics, and that's about it. There's conveyor belts, but they don't really change a whole lot in the level. There's this one section where you have to do a bit more platforming with these conveyor belts that are shooting you into like these things that are going to hit you, and that can move things slow, make you slow down a bit. There are little bits of alternate pathways, but not really. There's one in the previous carnival level where you actually can get slowed down by using an alternate pathway by doing it, so that's kind of sucky. So even if there is alternate pathways in this game, for the most part, they aren't really that big compared to the ones in other Sonic games, and you think they would have more, seeing as it's a racing game that you need to take alternate routes in order to beat your rival in shortcuts, but whatever. The Death Yard boss fight is with Metal Sonic instead of a previous character, and this one is really weird, because all Eggman does is come out and shoot you in his little thing, and this monkey guy, and then you hit him. And that's it. He's electrified, so you think you won't be able to hit him, but you just can. You just kind of just wait for him to come out, and then you hit him. And Metal Sonic, well, he can't take away a point from you since he's not trying to kill Eggman. So this boss fight is actually pretty easy. You just keep running, collecting as much rings as possible, bounce off Metal Sonic, which you can easily do. You can hit the rival characters, and then wait for him to come out and then hit him. I don't know why these boss fights are so easy, and especially this one where you don't have to worry about the other character hitting them. But whatever, I guess I'll take it. The last level of the game is definitely the most interesting since it's an actual level. Meteor Base, the final area, where you play on top of a unique meteor area as well as go through the spaceship base. And the big difference here is we don't have a rival anymore. In fact, we have a timer. You will come across rivals like Knuckles and Shadow who will just help you along the way because they decide, like, hey, why are we fighting? We're going after the same fucking guy. I guess the characters in this game are fucking stupid, but whatever. So the challenge with this level isn't fighting another rival, it's the fact that there's a time limit, which is pretty generous. So yeah, this level's fine, but there's not a whole lot of obstacles here. There's a little bit, feels more like an obstacle course, which is fine. But yeah, you can tell that with this, without having a rival, that the Sonic Rebels development team, Backbone, didn't do a good job of level design, as there's not a whole lot of things to do here. There's some little obstacles to avoid and some little things here and there, but the whole time, we're kind of wishing, I wish there was more like a traditional Sonic game with like traditional enemies to fight and beat, but whatever. Act 2 Meteor Base tries to be more dynamic by having little portals to go into, and yeah, that's just okay. I mean, yeah, they're portals. There's nothing really challenging here. You can go to one portal, it takes you to a slightly different area than the other portal, but other than that, it's not a big challenge, so, you know, whatever. The boss fight of the Meteor Base isn't even a boss fight. You're on top of Eggman's base, or I guess Eggman Nega's base, as Metal Sonic's trying to hit you. You just hit the thing at the end for each section, and then you go on. There's a time limit, but it's pretty generous, and it shouldn't take you very long to beat this thing. Sometimes it'll take more than one hit to beat the thing, but when you do, it just ends, and just says Sonic wins. Like, oh, I beat it? Well, that's good, I guess. And that, it really is Sonic Rivals in a nutshell. I can go into detail, like who fights who and who's that, but honestly, I don't feel like it's worth talking about. This game doesn't give a whole lot, and it's just there. Honestly, I think Sonic Rivals 2, from memory, was better than Sonic Rivals 1. This is the game I bought the PSP for, because I want to see what it was like, since I heard no one talk about it. Some people play it, say it's nostalgic, and I can see why. It's kind of beginner-friendly, but at the same time, I feel like there's way better Sonic games, and I feel kind of the PSP users kind of got gypped a little bit. They could have done so much more. The PSP is a very impressive handheld console. They could have even poured over some other Sonic games. There is a Genesis collection on it, but, you know, they could have done, like, Sonic Heroes on this bitch if they wanted to. But, yeah, we got Sonic Rivals instead. A game that is just okay. It just does the bare minimum of what it's supposed to do, and that's fine. It has some nice-looking level areas, and it's cool to start off with just playing as 4 different Sonic characters, and the race dynamic is unique. I just think it's not executed that well, and so overall, it's kind of a forgettable game. Sonic Rebels has never been ported to any other console other than the PSP. However, it is not a very expensive game at all. In fact, it's pretty easy to find. It was a good selling game on the console itself, even making the Greatest Hits collection. So if you have a PSP, you can play it on there. But if you want to play it on any other console, like maybe on the big screen, you're going to need like an emulator or anything like that. Though, if you want, this game's made for PSP, so might as well find a PSP and play it. I mean, there's better games on the PSP, but yeah. Before I get to the final ranking, I gotta mention Sonic Rivals box art. It's okay, nothing really special here. Sonic's pushing Silver, he's pointing, showcases all the 4 main characters you play as, Sonic, Knuckles, Silver, and Shadow. It looks fine, nothing's wrong here. But then you look at Shadow, you see his eye. He's looking really far to the right there. But if you've seen the special render, his eye is actually not looking over to the right, it's looking straight on. And they did a lazy Photoshop to make it look like he's looking over there. It looks so janky when you realize that, and it's something I can't unsee every time I see it. And here's the official rendering of the Shadow, in case you're wondering what he looks like without his eye way over to the right. I put Sonic Rivals into the C tier, which is just mediocre. I don't have much to say about Sonic Rivals. It's just an okay game. I played it for a while. Thought it was There's 4 campaigns. Yeah, that's all there is to say about Sonic Rivals. I'm sorry this is your childhood game. Sorry you didn't have a better childhood. Yeah, sorry. I'm an asshole, I know. Anyway, that's it for this game. I'll see you next time. I think we'll be going to the 2007 Sonic games, which there's even more of. And hopefully any of you guys are still watching this long-ass Sonic retrospect that I've been doing. That will not even be done by the end of this year. Not even close. I got till next year. See ya whenever I do the next Sonic game, or whatever I have next installed in my review channels. Go check that out by subscribing if you want. If you don't have to. Anyway, thank you for watching, and goodbye.